I'm a cyber protect officer for Dorset Police. And I also deal with cybercrime prevention, which is identifying kids that are at risk of falling into cyber criminality and trying to steer them onto the right path. But today I'm talking mostly on the protect side of things, because obviously small businesses, one of those areas that are very heavily targeted by cybercrime and potentially much more significantly affected by a successful cyber attack than a larger company that might have obviously the balance book to be able to just absorb a hit. So for a small business, obviously a successful cyber attack can be devastating. One of the things that I was asked to talk about was AI. So that's what I'm going to focus on mostly to start with, AI and how it is enhancing and helping cybercrime grow. Rather than talk about cyber threats and then into AI, I've done it slightly the other way around, really, as will become clear as we go through. So just quickly, show of hands, does anybody recognise this person?
Yeah.
That person doesn't exist. It's not a real person at all. Bam, there we go. And I've done this to pace myself and click it as we go through, but it's going to work fine. If it seems disjointed, I've got an excuse now. You just do one and then that one. Again, I'll talk through this. So this is a picture that I got from a website called This Person Does Not Exist. And this website is fantastically useful for making faces that, I mean, would we all say this looks quite real? You probably wouldn't look at that and think that's a fake picture. Now, this is made by AI, a system called a generative adversarial network, and a GAN for short. So a GAN, as it says here, capable of creating a very, very realistic image of, well, in this case, a person. There is also, if you fancy a bit of fun later on, a website called These Cats Do Not Exist, and it will generate a picture of a cat. Slightly less advanced AI, and you occasionally get a really good picture of a cat. And I don't know what. It basically is like a sausage cat that has tails at each end and no face. So that isn't quite so great, but obviously with technology it is quite good. On the next slide, hopefully there we go. This is basically a loose model of how a GAN, or generative adversarial network, works. And this is the sort of technology that underpins most AI. So it's obviously one of those processes that will evolve and adapt and get smarter. And I think that's probably one of those things that concerns people about AI, is the potential for it to grow and grow and grow. It's fairly unchecked. And this is sort of how it works. I'm by no means an AI expert, by the way. I wouldn't even call myself a cyber expert. I think Nigel oversold my abilities by calling me head of cyber, but I always appreciate it. My pay packet doesn't quite match that title, though. As we see here, this is how it works, and we'll go through it briefly here. So we've got two computers, one a generator and then one a discriminator. And these two computers work together. One tries to trick the other, and the other tries to say, nah, caught that. So training set gets fed into computer number one, and it makes a photo here, which then gets fed into a discriminator. Discriminator has been fed with other information, pictures of people, and it will look at the one it's been given, and the ones it knows about, and it will say, no, that's not real. Send it back to the generator. Generator takes that and thinks, right, what can I do? How can I improve this? And so it makes a tweak. Sends that through to a discriminator. The discriminator looks at it and goes, still not buying it. Goes back, tries again. This here, where it says noise, I have to be abundantly honest with that. I don't know what function noise serves in this process, but nobody really does. I was reading academic papers about it, just to try and figure out an answer to it. I found a couple of papers where people are doing studies and surveys to find out, not surveys, rather studies to find out why. It just turns out adding a bit of noise into the images, which is just distortion, pixelation, things like that to these images, makes them look significantly more realistic. So the discriminator, the generator starts pumping noise into the images, makes them look in what it thinks more realistic, and eventually it will make a picture that the discriminator looks at and thinks, okay, yep, that's a real person. Through it goes. And that, next slide please, is how we end up with this picture. So this will have come through at one point and it'd have had 3 ears, 2 noses, something like that. You do occasionally find one that slips through the net where someone's wearing glasses in one of the pictures that has been fed into it. So it thinks, right, people wear glasses, chucks them in, but it says, also people have nothing here, so we'll chuck that into this picture, and you basically get someone that's got like floating glasses on their face or one arm. So it's not flawless, but as we can see, it does a pretty good job. Now, hopefully this animation will work.
Generative adversarial networks can also turn photos into video and do a half-decent job of cloning someone's voice. This was created using a tool found on Google, which was trained using less than a minute of recorded speech.
Now, you might pick up on the fact that it's ever so slightly like my voice. It doesn't have the pitch, the cadence, the tone, anything like that. It basically sounds like I'm both tired and drunk. But that's just, I went on Google and I thought, what can I find? Voice cloner, bam. And I read a passage, it was a short little passage about rainbows. Basically nothing to do with what it just said there, but I gave it a minute of me just talking, the words it told me to read. And this completely free, you can just go on there, put in your email address and access this account, was able to create what I think we could probably say is, that sounded a bit like me, didn't it? If you were to get a phone call and they'd paid for a premium version, or they had tools that were a bit more advanced where they could tweak the cadence, the tone, and type in exactly what they wanted it to say. Yeah, not only then have you got something that maybe looks like someone entirely different, but then you're able to make somebody's voice happen as well. So think about that from a business point of view. If you have that process in place where you have payments going through and you need that vocal confirmation that a payment or a change to your banking details is okay and is above board, suddenly, can you really trust that that voice is who you think it is? Now, there was listening to something the other day, a podcast where they're talking about a scam that got busted wide open. It was in America, a telemarketing scam around police pensions and all that sort of stuff. And they were able to replicate people's voices so well that they were able to divert payments away from people, so people lost an awful lot of money. And the only reason they were able to pick up on it was that the criminals had trained this system using real voice recordings from tapes and recorded messages and replicated the voice of someone who had sadly passed away. So when that phone call comes through and it sounds exactly like that person, the only reason they could tell that it wasn't real was that this person unfortunately wasn't around anymore. It's a really, really advanced technology. Capable of doing quite a good job. You'll notice when he was moving around, his hair went really funny, but his mouth moved, he blinked, he did everything that you'd expect. It's a fake photo that I made of a click of a button, and the video's been generated with a completely free piece of software, but I just put that in and then read to a little bit. So you think about now what you could do with that. We can make a photo move, you can make a voice just happen. It probably stands to reason that AI can do things that are significantly less advanced as well. So fake documents and phishing emails. And this is where we're probably going to see this threat start to creep in a bit more. So we can move on to the next one. This here, but don't worry about reading this, the content isn't all that important. But this is the product, or a product created by IBM. And they did a bit of work where they said, right, AI, do your thing. We're going to tell you a bit about areas of concern for people that work in this organization. We're going to give you some social engineering techniques to use, things like social proof, a bit of sort of pressure, all that sort of stuff. Marketing techniques, so we're going to talk about mobile optimization and that sort of preferential treatment if you answer quickly, that sort of stuff. Who it is they want to impersonate, so they said make sure your emails come from a human resources department, and then a delivery method by email. So they fed in a bunch of email addresses, and AI basically went, right, bam, here's your email. So we move on to the next one. That is a human-generated one, which is basically people who are adept at doing this sort of stuff. Obviously, being IBM, it's all done on the right side of the law, but they know their social engineering techniques. They know what to say, what to do, what buttons to press. And yeah, it looks pretty much the same. They're not doing anything super fancy. Nothing's trying to be all flashy to make you be like, oh, wow, this is definitely them. It's just creating things like the sort of emails you might get internally from your HR department. So move on to the next one, please. This here, same study, the work that IBM had done. They looked into the effectiveness of these two different sort of approaches. They actually used a couple of different approaches as well. So generic phishing emails, what they did was just go out into the repository of emails that they'd found throughout the course of the work they were doing, and they thought, right, we'll try this format and we'll see how many people in our sample, which was about, it's 112 people taking part in it, how many people fall for just a carbon copy, something we found off the internet. And it was 19%. 19% of people clicked through onto the next part of that phishing email. Let AI have a go at making one of, I say AI in this general term, they use basically 4 different models of AI and the different sort of processes, but we say AI as that coverall. These different systems had a go at creating their own generic email, and there's a jump of 11% effectiveness straight away. Then they let people have a look at the products that AI had generated, and they would make changes. So they'd say, right, well, we need to just tweak that to make it more appropriate to this audience. We'll chuck in some things just to make it relatable, and suddenly the effectiveness shot up to 60%. And then these two down the bottom is probably where it gets a bit more interesting. So we said to their AI systems, generate your email, but before you do, go off onto the internet, look up about this company, learn what you can, and then write the email. So they went off, the computers would have gone off, scoured places like LinkedIn, company websites, so they could build up a picture of how this organisation operated. And they got 66% effectiveness, which is exactly the same as those specifically crafted emails, where a human sat in front of a computer, read over it and thought, right, this is the CFO of this business, they do this, they work here, this is everything I need to know, right, let's make my spear phishing email. AI was just as effective as doing that. Just click again for me. This is how long it takes to do those processes. So they had a little look at the sort of cost-benefit analysis of using AI over and doing it yourself. So generic phishing emails, it took them a quarter of an hour to punch in 112 email addresses and send all of those emails off. 5 minutes for AI to do it. So straight away, 3 times quicker for a computer to do it for you. For them to look at the AI-generated ones and then tweak them, that was just over 2 hours worth of work. For AI to go out and have a look and learn about an organisation, write an email, and then send it, 15 minutes. But for the people to do that, just shy of 10 hours. So for them to go out and send specifically crafted emails for everyone that they wanted to try this sort of thing with, you're looking at a full day's work, basically, but the computer could do it in a quarter of an hour. So what we're seeing really is that AI isn't making this threat more significant than it already is. It's not making these attacks more effective, more impactful, but what it is doing is making them so much easier to do. So what the real threat is when it comes to AI, so just go to the next slide for me, because I think, there we go. Are we right to be scared of it, as I say here? I'm just going to spitball, because what I forgot is that if I read this, I have to turn away. So I think I remember what it says. We'll see. Basically, it's making things that much more effective, that much quicker. So we are going to see that sort of exponential growth in AI-generated cybercrime, just because it makes it widely available to everybody. You don't need to have now that mindset where you think, right, what do I need to know? Who am I going to target? What cues am I going to try to put into my email? Because these systems will go out and do it all for you in a fraction of the time, a quarter of an hour over 10 hours. And that's where we're going to need to get a lot smarter. So, as it says down the bottom here, thankfully, there are some things that AI can't do. There are telltale signs with phishing emails that even AI can't currently sort of do away with. So let's move on to the next one for me. Again, don't worry about reading all the small print here, but this is just, obviously you can see a mock-up of an email. Certain things here, they are just parts of how the internet works. They can't be changed because it is just the way content is delivered. So your email will always come from either your genuine user, but if they haven't got access to a genuine user who they're trying to copy or trying to replicate, they'll have to use a fake or a spoofed email address. So if we're to look at that email address, when we open up this AI-generated email, if it says, oh, this is Amazon and you've won this gift voucher, open it up, look, even AI can't change the fact that's come from some completely different account. So we look at that, and that's one of our telltale signs. Generic greetings or no greetings at all. So if you get dear sir, madam, with your normal phishing emails, that's a pretty good sign. Maybe not going to be such a giveaway if AI is going out and learning and putting that content in there, but it's still worth bearing in mind because those generic greetings are still going to be a good giveaway as to something being fake. Requests for personal information over email, buttons and hyperlinks trying to take you away to other places. That's obviously the core function of what a phishing email is trying to do. So those sort of pressured attempts to get you to surrender information or go to a different website, always going to be there, AI or not. Unsolicited attachments, again, that will be the delivery mechanism. If it's a person doing it or if it's AI doing it, there has to be a payload. And if you're not expecting that on your email, then don't click it, don't open it. again, no matter what it does, it has to attach that payload and has to get to you some way, AI or human. Biggest thing we can look at, and what I recommend to absolutely everybody, hovering your mouse over any links or buttons in that address. And this is what I mean about AI not being able to change the way the internet works and the structure. Because I can make a link pop up and it will say, as it says here, this form. I can hyperlink it to appear as words, but I could also put in there www.google.com and it would look like Google. Underneath that will be the real address that it's going to. And we can see this by hovering our mouse over it. So here, this form, you won't be able to read this, but it's popped up in a tiny little box that says fakeweb.com. Generally, cyber criminals will go for something a little bit more convincing than fakeweb.com. But if you see something pop up that clearly doesn't look like where you're going, it's not where you think you're going. And again, there's nothing current AI is able to do to cover that. So I suppose, in a way, yes, we should be concerned about AI. But at the same time, no, we probably shouldn't at the moment. Who knows, 20, 30 years down the line, we could find ourselves in a Skynet situation. But at the moment, I don't think that's really much of a concern. It is going to be just an automation tool that makes these attacks easier to do at scale, much quicker as well. But as long as we know what we're looking for and what we're doing, we're really well placed to defend ourselves. So let's move on to the next one. As I say here, it's often said that people are the weak point in an organisation's cyber defences, but the truth is it's only people who haven't been trained in what to look out for, what to spot, how to respond to a phishing email. And if people haven't been given the opportunity to learn or given the resources to learn what to look out for and how to respond, it's not really the people who are at fault. It's possibly an organisational thing or a cultural thing, but it's the important thing is basically, as it's inevitable, we will see more of these very convincing phishing emails coming down the line. It's essential, really, that people are given the opportunity to learn what to do and how to do it. So we've got, just next one for me, Tom. This here, this infographic comes from the National CyberSecurity Centre, and it's just one of the things they have available completely free to businesses of all sizes. It's an infographic that gives general tips for end users, people who work in the organisation, what they can do for their passwords, their general email security, the telltale signs of a phishing email. There's PDF documents you can download and use as widely as you like about a whole range of cyber topics. Like I say, completely free. Another thing they've got as well is an e-learning package. So you can go onto that website, just dish out the link to anyone who works for you and just say, right, go through this. It's not going to take too long, but it will teach you about what to look out for, how to stay safe. It really is worth doing. So I've got over on the back corner over there as well, copies of, I said back corner, I pointed far too far, basically there, behind the mayor. Some copies of the National CyberSecurity Centre's, that's a really mouthful of a title, Cybersecurity Small Businesses booklet. Tell you what, come find one, you'll see exactly what it's called. I always forget. But it's basically a little booklet that walks through all of this stuff in pretty good detail, telling you what to look out for, what to do, what you should have in place. And they're all for free. You can download them, print them yourself, or save yourself the time and take one of my copies as well. Next one, please. This is a shameless plug for what we do in Dorset Police. So this is just one part of what I do, sort of this business engagement, coming to places like this. We also go into individual businesses at their request, and we'll go through cyber awareness sessions with their staff, going into much more detail about phishing emails, current scams, known threats, all that sort of stuff. Completely free, no charge at all to that. We can do it online, we can do it in person. We'll do it any time of the day as well. We'll be there bright and early as long as there's coffee available. We'll stay late in the day as long as there's cake. So, any time that suits your organisation, we can come along. I've done this in a room of 4 people, sat on a tiny sofa presenting on TV, which was one of the most awkward engagements of my life. I've also done it to 200. So there's no business too big or too small. If you think it's going to be useful, just get in touch, let us know. Very, very quickly, this is another system we can offer access to for any organisation, no matter how big, as long as you have a firewall of your own in your organisation. Police Cyber Alarm is a monitoring tool, and it looks at just incoming traffic. None of your data, none of what's going on with your genuine internal traffic. It's just something that looks at what's coming in, where it's trying to go. So it will say, right, this IP address is based in, picking a country at random, Russia. It's trying to get in via this port. It's also tried this port, this port, this port, this port, this port. So anything that looks suspicious, it will warn you about. So you can then look at that, go to your IT provider or your in-house IT and say, let's find out a bit more about this. There is a vulnerability that will leave you vulnerable to attack. You can fix it because Cyber Alarm will have told you about it. It will also look at your website as well. Go over it and look for any vulnerabilities on that website. So it will say, your encryption is bad here, your customers might lose data. Things like that, but it explains it all for you too as well. Next, and I think final slide, there we go. This here is the email address to use if you want to get in touch with me. And I will be moving on to pastures new in about a month and a half's time, but there will always be someone that will come along and do this job after me as well. So if you send this to our unit's generic inbox, it will be picked up, it will be responded to, and if it's in the next 5 weeks, it'll be me that does it. But if not, like I said, we're still going to be continuing that service. And yeah, we're here to help if you need us, basically. So I'll leave. Thank you very much.